video, we're gonna be building some super cool DIY floating shelves.
Yep, so we had shelves in our office before that were mismatched. They didn't look good at all. So we want to do a floating shelf.
Yeah, I mean, this is totally new to us. I wanted something that was seamless. They're floating. People are gonna wonder, how did you build these? Well, we're gonna tell you. And we'll get into the material right now.
The first thing is your wood that you're gonna use for your shelves. We're gonna use a 2 by 10 by 4 foot board, and it was only $13, and we'll be using it for 2 shelves.
And I recommend getting untreated wood if you're gonna use it inside. The treated wood is a little heavier.
More expensive.
And it's more expensive. So when you're putting this floating shelf on the wall, you obviously don't want the heavier wood, especially if it's not gonna be outside, it's just unnecessary. In addition to the wood shelves, we found some super cool brackets that we're gonna use first time, and it's gonna make it really easy. And it's super durable.
They come in different sizes. We got 8-inch.
And you need 2 per shelf. In order to use these super cool brackets, you do need to use 2 types of bits for this DIY. One being a spade bit, and the other being a twist bit.
Both of them 1/2-inch diameter.
Yes. Now, a few tools. Really, you only need 1 tool that's required, and that's a drill. But if you don't want to use your hand to sand, we do recommend an electric sander.
We have a video on how to use it if you're interested.
And the last thing you'll need is stain or paint. It's totally up to you. Whatever your preference is, we will be staining ours with some super cool
white
stain that we just discovered recently. And Jen loved it so much, she redid our box beams in the living room.
Everything's about to be white wood stain now.
But I'll tell you what, I love it. I think it looks really clean. First thing, we're gonna be making some cuts. If you don't have a saw, your local hardware store should cut the wood for you.
So if you get your 4-foot board, you can just have it cut directly in half, and there's your 2 shelves. But you can always use a hand saw.
Yes.
So many options for this, but what we like to do, one tip, is to cut the edge of the board off. So just a little tiny cut, like a 1/4 inch thick, just to get your board not only flat and smooth on the edge, but also so when you go to stain it, all of the ends are gonna stain the same color. It may not make sense, but
just trust us.
Trust us. Next up, we're gonna sand both of the shelves. So not only are we gonna sand the edges that we cut to get a smooth edge, but I'm also gonna sand the entire board because as you can see, it comes a little bit yellow from the hardware store. So once you start sanding it, it gives it more of that natural wood color, so the wood stain doesn't look differently when you go to apply it. I don't wanna put white on top of yellow. Just get it smooth, get the yellow off, and have some nice, ready to stain boards.
Good tip, I didn't know that. So once you sand your wood, you want to go ahead and wipe all that dust off. Make sure you have a clean surface before you apply your stain. All right, so the next part is very important. You need this to line up, okay? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna find the studs on the wall because we're gonna be putting some really heavy stuff on these shelves and we don't want them to rip out. So once we find the studs, we're gonna mark where our brackets need to go on our shelf.
So 2 of our studs lined up with the back of the shelf. So we're just gonna have the brackets go directly into the studs. If yours only lines up into 1 stud, then that's okay. We'll show you what to do with the other side once we get to hanging.
Once you've marked where your brackets are gonna go, you wanna make sure you're drilling your hole directly in the center of your wood.
Yes, so it's 2 inches thick. You wanna make sure your hole is directly in the middle of that.
That's right.
Another thing you wanna do before you drill your holes is you wanna choose which side of the shelf you want as the top. So if there's lots of knots or imperfections in the wood, then you may want that one on top because the stuff you have on the shelf will cover it.
Yes. All right, so now we're ready to drill our holes. We're gonna take the 1/2-inch spade bit, and our bit is only 6 inches. Now remember, our brackets are 8 inches. So you're probably wondering, what am I gonna do? Well, I have an extension bit that I'm gonna clip in, and now I have an 8-inch bit. So we're gonna make it all the way in.
So to make our holes for the brackets, we're gonna use 2 different drill bits to make the holes. The first bit is gonna be a 1/2-inch spade, and this one has a point on the end, so it's not only gonna be easier to make the hole, but it's also gonna give you more of a straight, perfect hole, which is what we need because the bracket is 8 inches long. So you wanna be sure it's exactly straight, and the only problem with the spade bit is you can't widen the hole any more than the size of the bit. So it's a 1/2 inch, so you're gonna get a 1/2 inch hole. You're not gonna be able to widen the hole at all. But the problem with this is it's too snug of a hole for the bracket. So to kind of widen the hole just a little bit, we don't want to go a size up on the spade bit because then the hole would be too big. So to just widen it just a little bit, we're gonna use a twist bit. And with this one, you can go into your perfectly straight hole and kind of widen the hole just a little bit so that your bracket will fit. But the twist bit, if you were to use this from the beginning, you may end up with not a perfect hole, you may go at a slant. There could be more issues. So to make life easier, we're just gonna use both bits. I hope this makes sense. It's kind of one of those things where you have to go to do it and you feel it and see it for yourself for it to make sense, right?
Yeah, use the spade bit to kind of lay the track, and then we clean that track out with the spiral or the twist bit. So before we drill, we're gonna clamp our board down, make sure it's safe, secure, and the only thing I need to watch out for is the drill. All right, so we've got our holes drilled, we've sanded everything. So next up, we're gonna apply that beautiful white stain to the board and really make it look finished.
And I ended up doing 3 coats of this. You do wanna let it dry in between each coat.
All right, so next up we want to attach those brackets to the wall. I always like to pre-drill into the studs to make sure that I've got a nice hole and I'm not splitting those studs because I really need the screw to hold this shelf on the wall. It's floating, remember?
Oh, forgot. And these brackets have 4 holes, so we're gonna have 4 screws to add. The first 2 are the ones that we put into the stud, and then for the other side, we're gonna use the anchors that came with the brackets, which surprisingly, these anchors are amazing.
They're my favorite anchors.
Yes, usually when anchors come with something, they're not great. So these were amazing, great anchors. Also came with a level, so this kit was amazing.
It had everything we needed.
So we're gonna hand screw the anchor in. I don't know why, but that's what you do. Why do you do that?
Because you don't want to strip it in the sheetrock. I always just like to hand screw it so that I can feel the pressure. Rather than with the drill, you may not be able to feel it and you may screw it in too much. It's a plastic anchor, so you can strip it, you can break it.
Yes. So now the bracket is ready to be screwed in. So we're gonna go ahead and add the 2 on the left side that are gonna go directly into our studs. And then I'm gonna hand screw in the ones into the anchor. This is a really cool part because when you screw into the anchor, you can hear the anchor pop. And it's so satisfying.
And what it's doing is it's popping open and it's locking it in place in the sheetrock.
Listen.
You heard that? It snapped open. We're gonna put the shelf onto the one bracket that's screwed onto the wall, and we're gonna line up and mark our holes on the other bracket. Now the key is to make sure that your shelf is level so that when you mark your holes on the other bracket and you attach it, when you go to put your shelf on the wall, it's level. That's the key here.
Yeah. You don't want a crooked shelf.
No, we don't. All right, our brackets are just sitting there floating.
The time has come.
It's time to slide these shelves onto the brackets, and now we will have some beautiful floating shelves.
Yep. And if your brackets are still just a little bit snug, then you can add a scrap board in front and use a rubber mallet to hammer it into place. You don't want to hammer directly onto your shelf.
No.
Because then you'll have dents all over it.
Don't do that. I am so excited to get rid of the mismatched shelves to have these beautiful white stained floating shelves.
What an upgrade. And these were less expensive than the other ones.
I know, isn't that crazy? And they were very simple to make.
Super simple, and you really only need one tool, the drill with the bits.
That's right.
So anyone can do it.
This is awesome. I can't believe it. I've never built a floating shelf like this.
I always wondered how to make a floating shelf and came across these brackets, and now I know.
I love it.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.